All right, I'm going to mute everybody now. Okay. I'll just kind of like minimize this. Okay. All right. I think everybody can. Okay, there you go. Good. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Your Health in Your Hands. I'm Dr. David Ajibade with the Brain and Body Foundation, and we are going to continue our discussion on Alzheimer's disease and what you need to do to understand how to prevent it. And if you have someone, a loved one who is going through it or who has succumbed to it, what you can do to help that person. Now, according to medical science, it is the one disease out of the top 10 diseases that kill people in the United States that cannot be slowed, it cannot be stopped, it cannot be prevented, and it cannot be reversed, according to medical science. So, but we're not talking about curing or treating it. We are basically looking at it from a different angle. We're looking at what it takes to strengthen the brain, which has been damaged. So we're not talking about treating a diagnosis, we're talking about, even if you have Alzheimer's disease, how to live beyond it and how to live even with the diagnosis. As you know, we do a lot with other kinds of diseases, brain disorders, and sickle cell disease back in Nigeria. And yes, the diagnosis of sickle cell disease is on them for life. They will always have sickle cell disease. However, and we have to call it disorder now because that's a politically correct term. But however, even with that diagnosis, you can live a normal life. And that's what we're talking about from regards to an Alzheimer's disease, how to live a normal life or how to live as close to a normal life as possible, even with the diagnosis. And we have been, not only us, but several people healthcare professionals have been able to show significant success and significant results. And we must learn these principles because it's only going to get worse. So I'm going to do a quick recap. Let's see if we can get this. I hope everybody can see. Oh, yeah, I need to show my screen. So I am going to show my screen. I forgot to do that part. Why did I forget to do my screen? I'll show my screen now. Hang on. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Let's see how to minimize this. Yes. Okay, good. Oh, no, that's not what I want. Darn it. Okay. Hello again, and welcome to Your Health in Your Hands. I'm Dr. David Ajibade with the Brain and Body Foundation. We are going to continue our talk on Your Brain on Fire, Part 2. And basically, we're going to talk about what needs to be done if you have had an emotional, breakdown or meltdown, or if you've been constantly in depression, or one of those things that we talk about that just beats you down and puts you under. Well, not under, but at least brings you below the level of life and vibrancy that you're supposed to have. So what to do. But before we get into that, let's do a quick recap. I mentioned earlier that Alzheimer's disease is the one cause of death that medical experts cannot cure, prevent, or slow down. And as you can see from this picture in front of you, this is quite obvious why that is so. You've got a normal brain on the left, and you see an abnormal brain that has been riddled with Alzheimer's disease. You can see it is shriveled up, it has shrunk significantly. The material that is used to build the brain, it is of the highest grade and the highest quality. So it's easy to understand, or it's easy to accept and to see why when they say it cannot be treated or brain damage cannot be reversed. It's easy to understand that because it is so complex and so sensitive and so delicate that to reverse this damage, most people just don't see it. And so that's why it's the big bad wolf that is known to be. But there's always a solution if you go from the perspective of building strength in the brain and body, improving and nourishing the brain and body so the brain and body can do its own work. it can tap into its own wisdom, its own reserve, so that it can reverse any damage that has been done to it. And we know that's possible, especially in young children, but certainly in adults as well. Emotional stress is what we talked about last week. We talked about how emotional stress can wreak havoc on the brain and the body. And we talked about the different kinds. I'm not going to dwell on any of them because we have to go into our main talk today. We talked about PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. We talked about sexual abuse. We talked about chronic depression, the stress of grief and loss. We also talked about something called strain, what we call strain. It is not that overt, high intensity stress that we all have known, but this is more like the dissatisfaction of life, grief, loss, regret, feelings of inadequacy, racial tensions, those things that are just beneath the surface. But nevertheless, they are eating away at our personality, our sense of well-being, and that in itself can cause some degree of damage to the brain and body. And I mentioned my story about how I had very severe depression, where I was losing my words, I couldn't sleep well, I had headaches, I even contemplated suicide. Can you imagine that? We talked about how this can affect the brain. And like I said before, the brain is the entire tissue, but the basic unit of the brain is what is known as the synapse, where information transfers from one cell, one neuron to the next neuron. That is what, there has to be a transfer of impulses or chemicals from one brain cell to the next brain cell. That is what is required for you to think, for you to dream, for you to pick up a ball, for you to throw the ball, for you to plan complex maneuvers. Everything happens at the level of the synapse. So we said that depression alters the structure of the brain, and we talked about the 3 or 4 areas of the brain that are mostly affected by depression and by any kind of stress. We talked about the hormones too that affect the brain and affect these 4 areas. And we paid specific attention to the hippocampus. That's the one on the right, starting with H. Specifically the hippocampus or seahorse. So they called it the seahorse when they discovered it. That is the part of the brain that deals with memory retention, memory formation, and memory retrieval. And so that is affected. And we talked about how stress can affect the different parts of the brain. That's not the picture there. And we specifically talked about the sex hormones, progesterone, estrogen, and testosterone. These all protect and nourish the synapses. So if we're going to have any results, with regards to turning things around, with regards to enduring stress, with regards to coming out of stress without the smell of the flames or smell of smoke, well, we will have to understand how to maintain and optimize our hormonal health as we go through it. That is where it comes down to the hormones, especially the sex hormones. I call them the PET hormones, progesterone, estrogen, and testosterone. They have to be optimized. That's another picture of the synapse. So we also talked about what happens, how stress affects the brain and the hormones, the immune system, all kinds of things. So let's get into this without much further ado. So what we want to do today is show you what you need to do. Let's say you're going through a very stressful period. What you need to start doing right then. You don't have to go past go. You don't have to collect 200. You don't have to go to the doctor. You do need to go to the doctor, obviously, if you have access to one. But you must start taking care of yourself. Start doing some things right away, during the condition, maybe after the condition, and going forward. And then even before the condition and before you have a stressful event or a break, the word always slips my mind, shutdown or breakdown. Anyway, what you need to be doing on a day-to-day basis before the event happens. And this event is going to happen to all of us. We're all going to suffer loss. We're all going to suffer regret in some way or the other. So what do you need to do before that event? You have to start building strength. And I'm going to mention a specific aspect of strength to do for you to build on. So these are the 3 stages. Like I said, you want to prevent, Actually, that word mitigate should not be there. The next one is to mitigate, to soften the blow, so that once that event happens, what can you do right then so that it doesn't cause the damage that it does to most people? And number three, maybe you've already had a very intense period. Maybe you've gotten out of it, but you're still feeling the aftershocks, the after effects. You're still feeling that those lapses, maybe in words and thoughts. So what you can do to replace that or to restore. And so we'll go on to that. I use the laws of life as kind of like a cheat sheet. It tells me, it helps in my thinking. We developed this over the years. It's now going on almost 20 years when we first started thinking about the laws of life and how human life is affected by 7 main areas, and how if you are conscious of those 7 areas, and if you intelligently direct and intelligently address the relevant aspects of those 7 areas, maybe you need to address all 7, you will find that you will be able to live at a higher level of life and be able to have better control over certain issues, maybe over your thoughts and your actions and your beliefs and your reactions to certain things. So this is like the cheat sheets. Obviously, we'll be talking a lot about the supplements and the nutrients that you need to put in your body, because in my opinion, if you don't deal with that, a lot of other things won't work as well. Obviously, your beliefs, your thoughts, and emotions are all important. So I'll talk about some of the general things that you should be doing on a daily basis, or on a regular basis, to ensure that you're strong and you can withstand stressful events. But beyond that, we'll show you how to use these laws of life and how to apply them in your daily life or in your specific circumstances. All right, so let's talk about prevention. There's a term called cognitive reserve. Cognitive reserve. What they found out is that those people who are able to withstand Alzheimer's disease and other dementias are those who already have a lot of capacity, a lot of reserve. Those are people who are living their lives well. They are constantly active, either intellectually or physically or socially. They probably have a good diet. They've not damaged themselves with all kinds of toxic foods. So like they found out even on autopsy that many people, the older people especially, already had what are known as the amyloid plaques. Those are the plaques that are known in Alzheimer's disease. These plaques kind of like that. I'll show you a picture in a few minutes. But the plaques kind of like impede and surround those synapses. They found that most people had, even at death, but the people who did not show the deficits that they were expected to show because of the plaques were those who had very, very active lives. And there's an interesting study of nuns in the convents that they showed that when these nuns died, they had a lot of amyloid plaques, but they also were not showing any signs of dementia. And the hypothesis and the theory is that because these nuns were super active, they were always reading, they were always studying, they were always serving, that sort of protected them or protected their synapses against further damage, or they had a lot more connections. They had more synapses than people who are just, sedentary, just sitting down at home, not doing much. So activity and intellectual curiosity and learning all the time are super important to withstand an emotional event or a stressful event. Again, I keep showing this picture of the synapse just to impress it upon you. And these are the books, Dr. Dale Bredesen, who has really helped us understand this. What he's saying is that it seems like, let me go back to this synapse. Up to a certain point is the toxins, is the high sugar, is the cortisol, is the things that are damaging the brain or damaging the synapse up to a certain point. When it reaches a tipping point, or when it reaches quote unquote critical mass, the brain itself sets off a self-destruct sequence. it begins to destroy itself once the tipping point has been reached. So like I said, up to a certain point, is the toxins, is the high levels of sugar, is the high blood pressure, is the low levels of hormones, high levels of inflammation in the brain. These are all toxic to the brain, and they cause the damage of the neurons and the synapse. At a certain point, when critical mass is reached, or when there's a tipping point, the brain itself begins to shut itself down. And that's what we want to avoid. And really, by the age of 40, most people already beginning to have amyloid plaque buildup. So there's a normal to your left, normal neurons, and on the right, you see the amyloid plaques. That's in the brain of someone who is suffering from Alzheimer's disease. And the other thing is called the tau tangles. The tau tangles and the amyloid plaques are the two pathologies that are seen in the brain. But like I said, as I said, people can have amyloid plaques in their brains and still not show signs of dementia. The common denominator in that case is that these people had been active, they were building consciously or unconsciously, they were building cognitive reserve. And that's what we want to do. You want to be able to build that capacity so that even if there's a stressful event, you will be able to get through it. All right. Hello, Leslie. Welcome on. So basic supplements. Let's talk about some of the basic brain supplements. I've talked about this several times. In my opinion, everybody should be taking vitamin C, vitamin D, and vitamin zinc. And excuse me, zinc. Zinc is a mineral. Zinc is the most important mineral for the brain. It's also the most important mineral for the immune system. Back in Nigeria, I recommend at least 10,000 international units of vitamin D a day, and at least 2,000 or 2 grams of vitamin C, but don't take it at once. I take the vitamin C powder and put it in water or another drink, maybe a Focus Plus or another drink, and I just drink it throughout the day, or at least for a few hours. You don't want to drink it all at once because the body only takes a little bit and then gets rid of the rest. So you don't want to drink it all at once. B complex, some people have said, somewhat comically, that B should actually stand for brain. So the brain vitamins, the B vitamins are extremely important, especially vitamin B1, B6, and B12. They help to keep a certain toxic chemical known as homocysteine. I mean, they do a lot of other things as well, but one of the things they do is that they keep a certain chemical called homocysteine low. People who are low in B vitamins, they tend to accumulate homocysteine, and which eventually causes damage to the cells and neurons and the synapses. So there you have it. These are the basic brain supplements you need to have. You need to be having that on a regular basis. Okay. I'm skipping through the other things, like, I mean, obviously, you need to rest, you need to exercise, you need to go out, enjoy the sunlight, and sunlight is not just for vitamin D, there are other things as well. So you need to enjoy, to be as active as much as possible. You already know those things. Of course, obviously, you want to take your medications and all that. These all are the things that help to build that strength and build that cognitive reserve. Now, if you have in the middle of a very stressful situation, what you want to do is to mitigate or to soften the blow. Again, I mean, could we turn off our videos, please, if you don't mind? It's a little distracting. Thank you. So we want to increase. So if you are going through a stressful period, you want to increase your amount of vitamin C, vitamin D, and zinc. What happens when the brain, and I probably should have talked about the hormones. I'm going to talk about the hormones later on, but what happens once you're going through a stressful period is that all of a sudden your brain and your body are just chewing up, they're eating up vitamin D, they're eating up zinc, they're eating up C, because your brain's under stress. So your brain is trying to recover. And so it's eating up all the important things that it needs to work like it should. And that would include the number one, that's C, D, and zinc. It will also vitamin B complex because the brain is under fire. It's burning up energy. So it's going to be mopping up the B vitamins. It's going to be under stress. So magnesium is what helps to calm the brain down. It needs magnesium to function well. And then you want to ensure that you're sleeping well. Yes, you want to exercise, but sleep is probably much more important. You want to be able to lie down in a dark room with no noise, no distractions, the phone not near you, the computer not near you, the TV nowhere on, it's not on, nowhere near you. And probably best is to have this mask, these what they give you in the airplane to cover your eyes, so it gives you the brain the impression that you're sleeping in a dark room. It is only when you're sleeping in darkness that melatonin, which is another hormone, is released by the brain. And melatonin is really the hormone of repair. It helps your body and your brain recover from all the stresses of the previous day. It helps you sleep well. It helps you get into REM sleep. If your brain is not producing enough melatonin, you are not going to be enjoying you are not going to have as deep and as restful a night as you should. So if you're not sleeping well, obviously when you're stressed, you don't sleep as well. So if you're not sleeping well, you should consider taking melatonin. There were times when I couldn't sleep well, so I started taking omega-3s and melatonin, and it helped as well. And it starts with 3 milligrams, excuse me, is it 3 milligrams? Yeah, 3 milligrams onwards. And I mean, it's a very safe, very, very safe thing. We use it for kids also, especially those who are hyperactive as well. So it's very safe. So you want to consider that. The other thing that I did when I was going through my stressful period was I took a lot of omega-3s. I didn't, the omega-3s that I needed were not around in Nigeria at that time, so I had to order them. And it was only when I started taking them that I started really, the severe headaches I had were abated. They were reduced significantly. The other thing that I want to mention, which I mentioned last time, is DHEA. This is like the building block, is the raw material your body uses to make testosterone, progesterone, and estrogen. And like we mentioned before, in fact, we'll probably get to it. But like we mentioned before, those 3 hormones are very, very important for the maintenance and the protection and the strengthening of your neurons, and especially those synapses where your neurons come together. Okay, frontal lobe, prefrontal cortex. Okay, so this is a picture. You probably will need to see this. These are all areas that are affected if you are not sleeping well. Okay, a few other things I'm throwing in here to do while you're going through the stressful period. Church attendance or religious activities help a lot. There have been lots of studies where they found out that people who are most neurotic are the least religious. So religion also serves as a protection. Yes, religion has its negative parts, but I think part of what helps with religion is the fact that you're in a social environment, you're with other quote unquote believers, you're helping hold each other up, standing shoulder to shoulder. So that social contact is super important. Meditation is very important. Meditation helps to calm you down, however you want to do it. Yoga also is a form of meditation that helps to preserve and promote peace, not just in your brain, but around your body. I think one thing more than anything is that you want things to calm down. During a stressful periods, like that picture says, there's frights, there's flights, there's freeze. Things are at a high intensity, a high stressful level. So if you can bring that a few notches, you'll probably be able to give your brain and body a chance to heal and to recover. All right, so I think I've mentioned some of these already. So the last stage, let's say you had chronic depression 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 10 years ago, and you've come out of it, you're not as depressed, you've learned to live with the problem, or you've learned to live with the loss, but you're still feeling the aftershocks, the after effects. What to do? The good thing is that your brain and your body have so much potential to repair, to recover, if they are given the right resources and if they are given the right tools. So repairing and restoring them might be very, very helpful. It is possible for the brain and the body to restore and recover themselves if you give them the right raw materials. And of course, we've talked about that as well. So just so you understand again, and I'm going to keep on, I know I've emphasized this a few times, that's for those of you who have not watched this or have not seen the earlier programs. I know this is being recorded and watched around the world. So you want to understand what happens when you're stressed. Number one, and probably the most important thing, is the increase in cortisol. That's the hormone of flight and of fright, the fighting hormone. It's a hormone that gets you all pumped up and ready to run or get all jacked up. So it does that. I mean, if it is on, like I said, if those levels remain high for a long period of time, 3 days or a month, 2 months, it begins to directly damage parts of the brain, especially the part that is most sensitive is the hippocampus, which is responsible for memory, for retrieval of memory, for integration of memory. So cortisol, just count on it. That could be that if you're stressed for a long period of time, you have already, or your brain is already experiencing damage to a certain degree. In addition, you're not able to metabolize well. Some of you may have even experienced indigestion. Some of you may be gaining weight. Some of you may even have high blood pressure. Some people, I mentioned to you before, that there are many soldiers, my colleagues, who go to the war front, and for 6 months, 1 year, they come back and they have high blood pressure for the first time. And it's almost like it is reset. In fact, it's not almost, it's actually what happens. Their blood pressure is reset. So they now have higher levels of blood pressure than they had when they were going there in the first place. So because cortisol is increased, there's also a reduction in the PET hormones, the sex hormones, progesterone, estrogen, and testosterone. Again, because your ability to metabolize, what stress does is that it shuts you down. So if you're not metabolizing well, you're also not detoxifying well. So they tend to keep toxins. Each night, what the brain does, that in fact, it shrinks. Some people say by as much as 40%. One of the ways the brain detoxifies itself at night, it shrinks by about 40%, and it gets rid of the toxins. But what happens if you're stressed? It doesn't do that. You don't sleep well. The brain doesn't do its work of detoxifying. So again, like we said before, toxins are one of the things that set you on a collision course to get an Alzheimer's disease. Not you, but somebody. So, and of course, your infection levels, your immune system is depressed, and so you're not able to fight off infections. All of this point back to what we talked about in the 4 horsemen. Remember what the 4 horsemen were? Remember, it's immune function, free radical damage or protection from free radical damage. Number 3 is inflammation, and number 4 is nitric oxide levels. So stress kind of tilts things in the wrong direction when it comes to those 4 areas. And here's the picture again. So you stress right there. If you're stressed in your mind, it shuts all these other systems down. It shuts down the brain, shuts down the hormones, shuts down your immune system, and therefore shuts down the rest of your body, because these 3 systems control all the rest. What are the supplements that you will need to restore, to repair, to recover from that quote unquote stressful event or the damage? Let's say you missed the opportunity to do it when you were going through it. What can you do so that you can fully recover or have a better chance of fully recovering? Well, again, you got to increase the vitamin C, D, and zinc. Those levels I told you are 5,000 to 10,000. Those are just maintenance. I mean, I on average take up to 20,000. You might want to check with your doctor. I'm not saying you should do that. I'm just telling you what I do. If you're going under stress, surely your consumption of these nutrients is going to increase. So you're going to need, and if you're trying to repair your body, your consumption is going to need, it's going to be increased. These are all usually what happens with label amounts. It's just giving label amounts if you're healthy and you just need a few tweaks here and there. If there's a major thing going on in your brain and body, those label amounts simply aren't going to do it. You're probably going to need more. What have I not talked about here? So number 5 and number 6, So brain-specific complexes, some of you know about Focus Plus. The Focus Plus and other supplements too that we know of can help in the rebuild, and not the rebuilding, but improving the function of the cells, of the nerve cells. Number 6 too, this is energy frequencies. You probably heard Jan and other people talk about it. These are new technologies that are they're trapping holistic frequencies in water, and just drinking or spraying that water on your tongue can transfer those frequencies to your brain and your body. So I've heard some really good things, especially when it comes to sleep. So especially if you're going through stress, sleep is a priority, and that can help. These frequencies, these energy frequencies can help you sleep well and give you a better chance of recovering. I mentioned that you do want to talk with your doctor if you have the opportunity to. If you do, you want to ask him whatever else he's doing, whether he's giving you an antidepressant or something to help you sleep. You want to ask him to check your testosterone levels. Yes, for women as well, your progesterone levels, your estrogen levels, your thyroid levels, and your vitamin D3 levels. I didn't mention thyroid much, but thyroid too is very important when it comes to depression. In fact, a large number of people, surprisingly more than we expected, have low thyroid function. And so you would want to check your thyroid levels. Progesterone, estrogen, and testosterone level. In fact, I know of people who go through a lot of stress. I think testosterone is most badly affected because it's like testosterone and cortisol competes. And when you're going through stress, the body shifts to make more cortisol at the expense of testosterone. And so your testosterone, from both women and men, your testosterone levels are really, really low. And so simply boosting testosterone levels can get you to feeling better. Just by boosting testosterone levels. And I've seen that happen over and over and over again. Some other things we want to mention. If you're under stress, a lot of people turn to alcohol. A lot of people turn to sweets. Yeah, not a good idea because those deplete the B vitamins. So I think that kind of like covers it. Conclusion. Let me see. I'm going to open it up again. Just as a reminder, the key to successfully successfully preventing Alzheimer's disease, avoiding limiting your exposure to the synapse-destroying agents while continually creating a synapse-enhancing or synapse-strengthening environment for your brain. So I hope that this has helped to serve you. I hope this has helped to explain the importance of the emotions, how emotional stress and the bad or the toxic emotions can cause direct and indirect damage to your brain, and therefore set you on a course towards problems later in life, like Alzheimer's disease. And I hope we've been able to at least point out the things that you can do to mitigate, reduce that effect. And if you've had these stressful events in the past, what you can do beginning today to reverse the damage and to help your brain recover more fully, so that hopefully, if at all there had been damage, if at all the sequence had already been initiated for brain damage and for Alzheimer's disease in the future, that sequence would have been aborted or will be aborted once you start doing the right things. Now with that, I'm going to stop my share and get back onto the screen and say hello to everybody. Hello, everybody. Okay. I'm going to open it up so you guys can answer your questions. And thank you for listening. Appreciate it. Oh, by the way, if you have any questions, if you want to, the videos are going to be available on our website, brainandbodyfoundation.org, and also on our YouTube pages, on our YouTube channel, Brain and Body Foundation. Thank you for listening. God bless, and join us next week. Bye. Okay. How are we doing?